How does a ghost story become a crime scene? It begins quietly, not with a scream, but with a click. On the subreddit r/LiminalLocales, a digital gathering place for explorers of abandoned spaces, a new thread appeared late one October night in 2021. A user named Mark, scrolling on his phone in the dark, the screen's glow casting long shadows across his room, was one of the first to see it. He paused, his thumb hovering over the screen, intrigued by its stark simplicity. The post was a digital whisper in a forum that usually shouted with tales of trespassing and decay. It felt different, out of place. The title was nothing more than a set of coordinates: 34.0522 degrees north, 118.2437 degrees west. The body of the post held a single haunting sentence: "The seventh door waits for the silent key." Attached was one grainy photograph of a rusted steel door set in a hallway that vanished into absolute blackness. Initial comments were a predictable mix of dismissal and curiosity. Some assumed it was an alternate reality game, a popular form of online puzzle. Others called it nonsense, just another post. Was this a game, or was it a digital message in a bottle, waiting for the right person to find it? It was posted by a user named SilentKey7, an account created that very day. It had no other posts, no comments, no history whatsoever. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. While the community moved on to the next forgotten mall or derelict school, he and a few others lingered, trying to decipher the message. The coordinates pointed to a desolate industrial block in Los Angeles, an area not known for interesting ruins. The username SilentKey7 echoed the cryptic message about a silent key. It was all too deliberate for a random post. It was a digital ghost, an account that appeared only to drop this one strange breadcrumb before vanishing back into the ether. The thread was downvoted and quickly sank, buried under dozens of other posts about forgotten hospitals and decaying theme parks. In our world, digital trails are often the only ones we leave behind, cryptic archives of our hidden lives that can outlast memory itself. This single post, a forgotten piece of internet flotsam, was more than a puzzle. It was a clue, hiding in plain sight on a public forum with over 200,000 subscribers. For months it sat there, dormant and ignored by all but a handful of curious minds. No one could have known that this single cryptic sentence was not a puzzle to be solved, but a confession waiting to be understood. Who was the person behind the name? Before that final chilling post, the user Helios_7 was a ghost in the machine. Their digital footprint was a curated trail of esoteric thoughts. For 3 years, they posted infrequently, a phantom voice in niche communities dedicated to urban exploration, forgotten astronomical charts, and ciphers from Cold War-era cryptography. There was never a photo, never a personal detail. Just pure disembodied intellect, a presence that was felt but never truly seen. Imagine a detective, late at night, bathed in the blue glow of a monitor, the only sound the quiet click of a mouse. They scroll endlessly through archived pages, piecing together a puzzle from scattered comments on forgotten threads. This was the work facing the armchair sleuths. Helios_7 was a carefully constructed persona, an academic hermit offering brilliant insights before vanishing back into the shadows. Helpful but distant, knowledgeable but never arrogant. This curated identity was a fortress built from bits and bytes, designed to be impenetrable. Why, after so much effort to remain a shadow, would someone post something so raw and deeply vulnerable? Their history showed a pattern of extreme, almost paranoid caution. They advised others on using privacy-focused browsers. They scrubbed metadata from every image they had ever shared, all 2 of them, both of crumbling concrete walls. Every single interaction was calculated to reveal nothing. It was a digital life lived in the shadows, a stark contrast to the floodlit confession on that quiet subreddit. In an age where our lives are compulsively broadcast, this level of anonymity is a conscious, difficult, and telling choice. This case reminds us that behind every username is a person, and sometimes their silence speaks volumes more than their words. But the digital world is never perfectly clean. A ghost always leaves a trace, however faint. And in one old, seemingly innocuous comment about a rare type of lichen, investigators found the first tiny thread to pull that might unravel everything. How does a digital ghost simply vanish into thin air? Behind the username Helios_7 was Leo Vance, a 24-year-old physics student with a quiet, intense demeanor. On the morning of February 6, 2022, his roommate saw him buying a black coffee and a paper roadmap from the corner store. An hour later, he tossed a heavy duffel bag into the trunk of his beat-up sedan, saying he was going camping for a few days to clear his head. That was the last time anyone he knew saw him alive. When Leo failed to return after a week, his family filed a missing person report. The initial police investigation began by the book, but quickly hit a wall. They found his small apartment undisturbed, his laptop on his desk, his wallet and keys gone. Friends and family described him as a loner, but not troubled. He was just private. The digital trail they tried to follow was the same one we uncovered, a ghost, a curated void that offered no real answers, only deeper questions about the man they thought they knew. A quiet disappearance. Weeks bled into a month with no new information. His bank accounts remained untouched, a silent testament to his absence. His phone went straight to voicemail, its last signal pinging near a rural cell tower on the city's edge before going dark. With no signs of foul play and no digital trail to follow, where could they even begin to look? The official search slowed to a crawl, just another case file slowly gathering dust on a detective's desk, overshadowed by more urgent crimes. The official narrative settled on a simple, unsatisfying conclusion: a young man who chose to walk away from his life. But his family, especially his sister Sarah, knew that wasn't the full story. The police case was going cold, but online, in the quiet corners of r/LiminalLocales, the real search was just about to begin. How does a friend's private worry become the key that unlocks a mystery? For Leo Vance, it started with a late-night scroll. His friend Chloe was browsing local news on her phone when she saw the report. The mention of an abandoned industrial park on the edge of town struck a chord. Leo had described just such a place, a new obsession for his urban exploration hobby. She remembered his strange, intense passion for what he called LiminalLocales. And then, with a sudden jolt, she remembered his username. With a knot of dread tightening in her stomach, Chloe opened Reddit and typed Helios-7 into the search bar. The esoteric posts, the philosophical ramblings, it was all there. But then she saw the final thread on r/LiminalLocales, the one with the coordinates and the cryptic, terrifying text. The digital puzzle pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Leo wasn't just exploring, he was documenting his own final moments. The dots connected. How do you tell a community of hobbyists that their favorite ghost story might be a real-time record of a friend's disappearance? Chloe hesitated for only a moment before creating a new post. Its title was simple: I think Helios-7 is my missing friend, Leo Vance. The effect was immediate and seismic.
The subreddit, once a quiet digital corner for enthusiasts of decay and atmosphere, erupted. Skepticism quickly gave way to a chilling realization as users cross-referenced the dates of Leo's February disappearance with the timestamp on that final, terrifying post. The tone shifted from detached appreciation to frantic, collaborative investigation. The digital ghost now had a face and a name. He was a missing person. Every cryptic phrase from Helios_7 was re-examined, no longer as art, but as evidence. This transformation reveals how our online footprints can become indelible records, turning niche communities into crowdsourced detective agencies. The digital life of Helios_7 was now the only lifeline that could possibly explain the terrifying silence of Leo Vance. The forum members began digging, but they had no idea just how deep the rabbit hole would go, or what they would find hidden in the metadata of his last uploaded image. How does a forum for ghost towns become a war room? Chloe's post linking Leo Vance to Helios_7 was the spark. The subreddit r/LiminalLocales transformed overnight. A user named Geostalker, bathed in the blue light of his monitor at 2 in the morning, began meticulously overlaying Leo's vague descriptions onto satellite maps. He wasn't just a reader anymore, he was a hunter. The community started by dissecting every word Helios had ever written, searching for a ghost in the machine, a digital breadcrumb trail. They treated Leo's post history like a sacred text, poring over his esoteric thoughts for hidden coordinates. An offhand remark about a specific type of lichen became a potential clue to elevation. A comment on a photo from 3 years prior was scrutinized for reflections in a window. This wasn't just idle speculation. They were building a profile, a map of his mind. They analyzed EXIF data from his older photos, cross-referencing timestamps with weather patterns from those days.
This collaborative effort was fiercely organized. Private discords were spun up. Direct messages flew between the most dedicated sleuths, sharing findings away from the noise of the main thread. This case became a blueprint for how online communities can harness collective intelligence, a model still used in missing persons cases today. They were proving that a network of strangers united by a single purpose could become a powerful investigative force. And then, after 72 hours of relentless digging, one user found something that changed everything: a single deleted comment. How do you find a message that was never meant to be read? For weeks, the r/LiminalLocales community had stared at the digital ghost of Helios-7, seeing only memories. Then, one user, scrolling deep into the archives at 3 in the morning, saw it. It was a comment Leo made on a photo of a derelict radio telescope. The static here is loud, almost like it's counting. 44.167. The numbers felt jarringly specific, a piece of granite in a field of sand. That single observation changed everything. The chaotic collection of Leo Vance's thoughts was no longer just a memorial, it was a potential cipher. Under Geostalker's meticulous direction, a team of anonymous users began a frantic digital excavation. They created a shared spreadsheet, a collaborative grid logging every stray number, every oddly capitalized word, every cryptic phrase from Helios-7's entire 6-month history. They were hunting for a pattern in the chaos, a faint signal buried under layers of digital noise. Could a 24-year-old student, knowing his life was in danger, have been clever enough to leave a key to his own disappearance scattered across dozens of unrelated forum posts? It seemed like a desperate fantasy born from collective grief. But the pattern held with chilling consistency. The numbers, once plotted, were undeniably geographic coordinates.
An out-of-place word, like rack, in a post about an empty school was a simple anagram for March. Another post mentioned a 92-watt bulb, a clear reference to a longitude. It was a painstaking process, a digital Rosetta Stone built from inside jokes and shared esoteric knowledge. The community wasn't just investigating, they were learning to speak Leo's secret language. This modern form of archaeology is a stark reminder that our digital footprints are permanent, often telling a far more complex story than we ever intended. The decoded messages, however, didn't lead them to where Leo was now. They created a terrifying timeline of where he had gone and what he had found there. How do you convince a detective to listen to a ghost story from the internet? The decoded messages from Helios_7, meticulously compiled by Geostalker and presented by Leo's frantic family, landed on a detective's desk with a thud. Detective Miller stared at the printouts from r/LiminalLocales, the strange symbols and usernames feeling alien under the hum of the precinct's fluorescent lights. To him, this wasn't evidence, it was the digital ramblings of conspiracy theorists, a distraction from standard procedure. The department had seen it all before. Tips from psychics, anonymous letters, and now theories from a forum about abandoned buildings. They were trained to follow facts, not forum threats. For law enforcement, credibility is everything. The subreddit, for all its passion, was an anonymous collective. In an age where anyone can create a digital persona, how does one separate a real clue from a well-crafted fiction? The initial reports were dismissed as noise, a tragic family's desperate attempt to find answers in the ether of the web. They were told to let the professionals handle it. The file on Leo Vance was getting cold, and this online crusade felt like a waste of precious resources. The messages were too cryptic, too convenient. But one detail refused to be ignored. Buried in the final decoded message from Helios-7 was a set of geographic coordinates, precise to 6 decimal places. Beside the numbers was a simple, chilling phrase: "My blue thermos, under the weeping willow." Leo's mother confirmed it. He had owned that specific thermos for years and took it everywhere. It was a concrete object, a real-world anchor in a sea of digital chaos. Skeptical, but bound by protocol to follow up on a specific lead, Miller finally authorized a unit to check it out. This story highlights a growing reality. The line between official and citizen-led investigation is blurring. Finally, the dispatch call went out. But what the officers would find at that remote coordinate was something no one, not even the subreddit, could have ever predicted. What truth lies at the end of a digital breadcrumb trail? The coordinates from Geostalker's decryption led Detective Miller and 2 deputies deep into the state forest, miles from any marked trail. It was a cold March morning, the air sharp with the scent of pine, the only sound the crunch of frozen leaves under their boots. The GPS led them not to a landmark, but to a nondescript clearing, a place you would walk past 1,000 times and never notice. This was the final pin dropped by Helios-7, a silent testament in a silent wood. At first, there was nothing, just trees and cold, hard ground. But the precision of the data was too insistent to be a coincidence. Miller knew this wasn't random. The team brought in a cadaver dog, a golden retriever named Buster, who became agitated almost immediately, circling and whining at a patch of earth near an old oak. The ground was covered with a thin layer of pine needles, a natural-looking blanket that was just a little too perfect, too uniform. How could a person, in their final, terrifying moments, possess the clarity to leave behind a map for others to follow?
The excavation began, each scrape of the shovel a confirmation of the subreddit's worst fears. They found him. Leo Vance was buried less than 3 feet down, his death a grim validation of every cryptic clue. The specific brand of industrial zip tie mentioned in one of his last comments was found at the scene, as were soil samples matching the red clay he'd described in the photo metadata. He had been documenting his own abduction and murder in real time, using the language of a subreddit as his final confession. In an age where our lives are broadcast, Leo's case is a stark reminder that a digital footprint can become a final, desperate act of witness. For Detective Miller, it was a haunting realization. The victim had helped solve his own homicide from beyond the grave. The truth was in the woods, but the identity of the person who put him there remained a terrifying shadow, and the next clue was waiting back in the digital world. How does a ghost story finally find its voice? It speaks through justice. Evidence from the woods, combined with the digital trail, led Detective Miller to Mark Jennings, a rival urban explorer. 2 days later, under cold streetlights, Miller's team arrested Jennings outside his apartment, Leo's car key in his pocket. The motive was a petty rivalry over finding the most obscure, untouched locations, a digital echo for a meaningless death. The arrest brought a somber quiet to r/LiminalLocales. Their victory was a tragedy. Users who shared photos of decaying malls were now cited in national news. Geostalker, remaining anonymous, posted one final update. "We found him. Rest in peace, Leo." The community had done what officials could not, sifting through digital noise to find a desperate signal. But where does a community's crusade end and dangerous vigilantism begin? The Helios-7 case is now a cautionary tale. It highlights the power of crowdsourced investigation, but also its perils.
Today, as armchair detectives dissect active cases online, the line between helpful citizen and harmful speculator is thinner than ever. This is the difficult legacy born from Leo's tragic final exploration, forcing law enforcement to contend with the digital ghosts they now investigate. And what of Helios-7?
The account remains on Reddit, frozen in time. Its final post, with the hidden coordinates, holds thousands of comments, a digital memorial where strangers offer condolences. It is a monument to a life cut short and a community that refused to let his message fade. But it leaves a chilling question about the pieces of ourselves we leave online and who listens when we are only whispering into the void.